Seconds.
Awesome. Let me take off my glasses.
Now we're live.
Okay, so hi everyone. Welcome to today's masterclass. My name is Vangile Makwakwa, and Aziza has given me this opportunity to do one of my masterclasses for Natural Women magazine. I'm a fan of the magazine. And I'm going to be talking to you about the 7 emotions that stop us from saving and investing and keep us in debt. So this is my face for now. You're about to see the PowerPoint. So it's an entire masterclass on PowerPoint. So just listen, get notebooks out, write. Please ask questions in the group chat. I'll stop the screen share every so often. There's slides where I ask if anyone has any questions. So just use the group chat and I'll be able to see when I take a break every so often where you are. Okay, so I think, here we go, sharing. Okay, so Aziza, do you see my screen?
Yes, I see it. You're good.
Awesome. So that means I'm good to go. There we go. So welcome to the 7 emotions that stop us from saving and investing masterclass. I'm going to be teaching you the class today. My name is Vangile Makwakwa, and I'm going to share a little about myself as I go along. So I'm the author of Heart, Mind, and Money. I'm a personal finance speaker, and I'm also the founder of Wealthy Money and Wealthy Money Academy. Heart, Mind, and Money has been chosen as a few years ago as one of the top 25 must-read books for South Africans. And it really is just about money and emotions. So before we start, I want to encourage you to turn off your phones and just close other tabs and just get rid of any distractions. This will be about 45 minutes to an hour long. So just give yourself that option to just be with the class for that time period, right? So you can start off by telling me in the chat on a scale of 1 to 10 how you'd rate the state of your finances. Usually I ask people a simple question when we start, which is, if money was a lover, how would you describe your relationship? So imagine you're in a romantic relationship with money and money is your lover. How would you describe that relationship? So you can also share that, right? In my experience, what I found is that financial freedom is 3-pronged. 1, it's about income. It's about increased income, decreased debt, and increased investments. So what you're ultimately aiming for is you want to increase your income, decrease your debt, and then use the difference from the increased income and the decreased debt to start building investments so that you can start creating passive income. So obviously with investments, I'm talking about stocks, shares, stocks, indices, mutual funds, all that, but I'm also talking about property. So creating passive income by having people rent out your property and then pay you a monthly income. Because ultimately we want to get to a place in our lives where we're substituting our income here that we're working for with passive income. So what we're actively working for, we want to start having that being substituted with passive income. Okay, so before I start, I have to say to you guys that if you stay to the end, I'll tell you how you can join my free 5-day Fall in Love with Your Bank Account challenge, right? I'm currently running the challenge We have 694 people signed up in the group taking the challenge as I speak. The group is extremely busy. Today is day one of the challenge. So I'll tell you guys more about that. And the amazing thing is it's absolutely free. And I've been running this challenge since last year. This is the fourth time I run it in 2 years. And every time people have the most amazing life-changing experiences. We have people from all over the world joining. So of the 695 or 97 people right now, people are from all over the world, and I'm kind of happy about that, actually. So what are you going to learn today? Today, I'm going to be talking about the link between emotions and financial behavior. And then I'm going to talk about the 7 emotions that stop us from saving and investing. So I'm going to look at 7 key emotions that I've seen that are really the top emotions that we should be looking at when we're really struggling with curbing our expenses and curbing our savings and investments. And I'm actually going to also talk to you guys from step 1, explain why emotions are really key to changing financial behavior, because often we think it's about using willpower and affirming things away, and it's really not about that. And this is why I think that the challenge that I run, the 5-day challenge, is often so successful, because people start to learn that it's not just about willpower and making ourselves stop spending. It's really about addressing our emotions and the underlying causes that actually are influencing our financial behavior in the first place. And then the last step, I'm going to talk about why it's important to heal ourselves in order to heal our finances. And by healing, I'm not just talking about law of attraction. I'm talking about going deeper into healing ancestral trauma and healing ourselves at a deeper level. So a lot of times, our entire financial behavior isn't just from this lifetime. It's that it's been carried from generation to generation through different belief systems, stories, and actual traumas that we have lived out. And those things all then impact who we are today and impact how our parents raise us, because obviously our parents were raised by our grandparents, who were raised by our great-grandparents, who were raised by our great-great-grandparents. And with that comes an entire story that they passed on, and often around money. So I'm South African, so my story comes with slavery, colonization, and apartheid, because most people don't know that there was actually slavery within South Africa. So there's all these other things that are going on a daily basis that we're not even aware of, that our entire past starts to impact something like money, and we don't even see it because it's so under the surface. So once we start to heal ourselves and heal the ancestral bloodline, it has such a huge impact on our finances, right? So before I dig in, I want to share my story with you quickly. So you know who I am, how I got here, and how I started teaching all this. So I actually started this work in 2010. I was straight out of business school with an MBA. I went to business school at the Simmons School of Management in Boston, Massachusetts. And when I left, when I graduated, I had $60,000 in debt, and I honestly couldn't see the light. You know, I had credit card debt, I had student loans, I owed friends and family money. Basically, if you were calling me and I owed you money, our friendship was over because I was not answering your phone call. It was just a hot mess in general. So, okay. So I was really ashamed of my debt because I was pretending to everyone. I was on social media everywhere with all my friends. I was just pretending like the world was awesome and I was awesome and everything in my life was going well. And I just didn't understand that that was adding to my anxiety and adding to my shame, because I'd go home and feel all this shame about being in debt, and I'd question myself and think, oh my God, how did I get here? I have all this education and yet look at me. Because I also have a finance undergrad degree. So I have a finance honors degree. So it's not like I didn't understand money, because that's all I'd studied. I'd done finance, done 4 years of that, and then I'd done an MBA in finance. So I think at the back of my head, I was like, I should know this. But personal finance is so different to what you're learning at school, because your emotions are involved and you have your own money traumas and your own family drama around money, and that all impacts everything. So knowledge doesn't really lead to behavioral change. And I love to tell people that really knowledge doesn't lead to behavioral change. So for me, the shame eventually led to deep anxiety, because I lived in fear of people discovering the truth about my finances in my life. I know, right? Like, I was like, oh my God, I'm so scared. And I started getting panic attacks. So the turning point for me came because I was just really tired and scared. I had no other clue what to do. And I just had this burning desire to be debt free. But also, I was living in a neighborhood in Boston, and it's called Haymarket. So when I was living there, I would go to Bank of America to go just withdraw money. One day I went to the ATMs and I stopped on the side of the road on the pavement and just couldn't move any further because I was having a full-on panic attack. And because I have a history of depression, I knew exactly what was going on. So I realized that my panic attacks were being induced by the very idea of just withdrawing money and looking at my bank statement and just holding money in my hands. And I just stopped getting out of bed. It was just a hot mess. I was too depressed to get out of bed. My health started to fail. So I just knew I needed to make a shift in my life. So I did what I call the money magic work, which is after my course, Creating Money Magic, which involves a lot of meditation and a lot of healing of ancestral trauma and my own childhood trauma. So I healed so much from childhood. I focus a lot on inner child, inner teen healing, ancestral healing, even healing past lives. I do just a lot of healing work because that really saved my life. And now, 4 years later, I am debt free. I paid off $60,000 in debt, which is a little more now because of the dollar, but then it was like of the exchange rate. But then in South African rands, it was 600,000 rand. And then I wrote and published a book about the journey. And this is the book, Heart, Mind, and Money. It's available in hardcover and on Amazon, also in hardcover. So then I launched Wealthy Money. I started traveling. I've been traveling actually for 12 years, which is partly how I got into debt. But the last 5 years that I've been back at traveling, actually no, 4 years that I've been traveling again since getting out of debt, I've been doing so without a credit card and also without any debt. So everything that I do is cash-based. And I also own a property in Cape Town. I'm moving more into property. And I don't owe anyone money. So that's actually kind of a nice feeling. I got my yoga teaching certificate in India to help me understand the link between emotions and the body. So a lot of my work is based on behavioral finance and actual psychology. So I don't just, I also teach yoga connection. And in 2018, I had my first retreat in Thailand. So people flew from South Africa to come have a retreat with me in Thailand. I have 2 more retreats booked for April 2019 in Sri Lanka. Pretty much sold out for both retreats. I only have 2 spaces left. I'm pretty happy about that. So what do some of my students say? So one of my students sent me a WhatsApp and she was saying, "Hi, Vangile, hope you're doing great. I just wanted to tell you that your course is doing wonders for me. Thank you and keep doing what you're doing." So she's saying that my growth career-wise is happening so fast. It's unbelievable. Over and above everything else that's happened, I stand in line to be the first to be on the, I can't say, I had to block it out because there's apparently a media announcement and everything. So she said she's the first female ever to get this. So this is amazing. I'm super excited. Also, there's an awesome flow of money my way. It's amazing. I got so overwhelmed with emotions the other day as a result of the amounts of money. So I just wanted you to know of the awesome things that I've been experiencing. So I have a lot of students that I interview who do live videos, who share on Facebook and other platforms how the work has been affecting them, right? So before I start on the masterclass, I want you guys to imagine who you would be without any shame or guilt or any constant worry about savings, about not having any savings, and about being in debt. Okay, so before we start, I'm gonna check if there's any comments, right? If you guys have any comments so far or any questions. So if you have any questions, let me know. Okay, no questions. So let me go back to the class. Okay. Oh yeah, here we go, screen share. Okay, so where do we start? Okay, let's talk about the link between emotions and financial behavior. Before I even talk about that, I want us to talk about what is money really. Most of the time, the physical aspect of money is just really numbers on a screen or paper that you see or coins that you can touch. Money is neither good nor evil. It is just money. It's just a measure of value, right? It's a measure of value, but what we've done is we've created stories around money, right? So we start to think of money as a persona and we create stories. We say things like money is the root of all evil, or all these things around money as if money is a person. But what that means is that at a very subconscious level, we have started to give money a personality. So whenever we subconsciously mention money, our subconscious is able to go back and retrieve whatever image we've created around money. And that image starts to impact everything that we do in terms of money, right? So our stories around money affect how we feel about money, right? So an example is, say that I have seen as a child that money has an impact on family, that every time mom earns money, imagine I'm 4 years old or 5 years old and I'm watching my parents on payday, and every time they earn money on payday, there's an air of anxiety around them and they feel like there's never enough money. As a child, I'm watching that and I take it in and it starts to become part of my story that there's never enough money, right? So, and what I start to see is that every time maybe my parents discuss money, an argument ensues. So I'll start to tie money in with money and arguments. So at the end, eventually I'll get to the conclusion that money creates arguments, right? Or having money or dealing with money leads to arguments. So that's not going to make me feel super excited around having money. Most people don't want conflict in their lives. They want happy relationships. And especially as a child, you crave a happy relationship. So most of the time as kids, we see this and then we absolutely go like, oh my God, I don't want to have money in my life because money leads to arguments. So if I want to have peace in my life, I shouldn't have money. So is it any wonder that often when we do have money, we'll feel anxious, we'll feel angry, we'll feel scared, or when we do get paid, or when people ask us about money, we'll feel triggered in some way because every time it's not the grown-up version of us that's now in control. It's the inner child, the 5-year-old that was witnessing the fights, that was sensing the anxiety in the house, that is really reacting to money in that moment, right? So our emotions, and this is just one example of how our emotions affect our financial behavior. But obviously, different emotions have a different effect on our financial behavior. And this is actually so interesting. This is what I really talk about in Heart, Mind, and Money, where I explore 22 different emotions and I explore how each emotion has its own unique characteristic in how it would affect our investments, how it would affect our spending, and how it would affect our savings behavior, right? So each emotion affects us differently. Okay, so let's look at the 7 emotions that stop us from saving and investing. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot more, but I chose 7. And we're going to look at each of the individual emotions. So let's start with anxiety. Okay. So anxiety as an emotion leads us to fight or flight. Whenever we feel anxious or scared or panicked, our natural instinct, the amygdala, the emotional reptilian part of the brain, kicks in instinctively to go into fight or flight mode. So our first instinct is to either fight whatever we're anxious about or panicking about, or it's to run from the thing that we're panicking or anxious about, right? So the problem is that money is, again, I said at the beginning, a few minutes ago, I said that money was something that you really couldn't, it's just paper, coins, or numbers on a screen. So how are you going to fight that or flight that or run from that? So for most of us, we go into avoidance, which is a form of flight, because we don't want to fight. So fight in this case would be, we would tackle whatever's going on with money. But because it's so difficult to physically tackle money as we would a tiger or a bear or anything like that, most of us instantly go into flight and we avoid our finances. So that's when you'd see us not checking our bank accounts regularly. We refuse to talk about money, especially with people that we love, right? We don't, and not only that, we also avoid talking about money in a peaceful way. We'd create arguments so that we get away from the very topic of money. Then we'd also we'd also increase our debt, actually. So because often when we go into avoidance mode, most of us want to make ourselves feel better. So we start to go into retail therapy, right? So what we do is we go into retail therapy, we go shopping to make ourselves feel better because we feel anxious around money, or we go the self-medication route. And self-medication often requires money, right? So then we use our finances to self-medicate. And another way that we also increase debt is because we're avoiding looking at our bank statements, we're avoiding looking at our credit card statements, we're avoiding calling the bank, calling the credit card companies, negotiating for finances. We find ourselves taking on bad debt or just taking on debt that doesn't serve us. We're paying higher interest rates for some things, all in avoidance mode, which is how we end up in increased debt because of anxiety. Okay, so when I say lesson 1 meditations, that's just like one of the ways that I help people with this particular emotion is I tell them to sit with the emotion and observe it. And I do a lot of that through guided meditation. So in my Money Magic course, I have lesson 1 meditations, which is a series of 3 guided meditations. And I take people through a guided process of understanding where the anxiety comes from. So sitting with the anxiety, understanding the thoughts behind the anxiety, and also looking at the memories that are causing the anxiety. So often the emotion is just a symptom of so many other things going on. And I think it's about changing the relationship that we have around anxiety. So instead of going into fight or flight or reacting to the anxiety, rather observing it and finding what the anxiety is trying to draw our attention to, because the anxiety can be a friend, actually. And that's something that I learned when I was struggling with my panic attacks, that when I stopped running from my panic attacks and started developing a different relationship with them, I was able to change so much. And that's actually a huge part of how I was able to get out of debt, because I stopped being anxious and stopped avoiding my finances. So the second emotion is one that I'm really well versed in. It's guilt. I laugh because I've just done a Facebook Live class for the challenge where I spoke about my issues with guilt. Guilt is so deep, right? So before we even talk about what the effects of guilt are on our finances, I want to explain why we feel guilty. Often guilt, just as an emotion, is something that we feel as a result of doing something wrong. So if I know I've done something wrong, I'll feel guilty and I'll want to punish myself in some way, right? So think about, say, you've done something bad to a family member or to a friend. How bad you feel about that. So most of us want to confess, or we want to avoid the person altogether, right? All that. So guilt, it's the same way. So there's a lot of reasons why we feel guilty around money. One of them could be quite simply that we think that that having money we have this deep belief that it's unfair to have money. So every time we make money or have money, we're thinking that we're taking something from someone, or we have survivor's guilt. So this is really, really huge. If you come from a family where many people were not thriving and didn't have lots of money, and you're probably the first in the family to make huge amounts of money or to get opportunities, then it's more common to struggle with survivor's guilt, which is, I made it out, nobody else made it out, right? And so there's a sense of, this is wrong, why me, why not others? And the natural reaction with guilt, like I said, is we're either going to confess, punish ourselves, or rectify the situation. So most of us will rectify that situation to get rid of money, because it's the thing that's making us feel guilty, right? For whatever reason. So with guilt, It's one of the emotions that I've really struggled with for years to deal with around my finances, right? Especially because of my mother's side of the family. There was just there's like layer upon layer of trauma. It's like if someone made it like for my mom's generation, the siblings, when one succeeded, because several of them succeeded, but the ones that succeeded were always made to feel so bad, right? So there's like all this trauma around that as a kid growing up in that, where people are constantly apologizing for expanding. So learning that you must be apologetic for your financial expansion and for your financial growth. I felt guilty every time I expanded, every time like I got opportunities, because that was what I grew up seeing and being taught. So my natural inclination was to get rid of money. And one way that we get rid of money is we energetically create emergencies, right? So we manifest emergencies out of the blue. So maybe you're not a big spender, but when you notice that often whenever you have money, you suddenly have emergencies. The car breaks down, you lose your phone, you end up in hospital, all sorts of things that require you to get rid of that money. Often there's an underlying sense of guilt, and then you just need to sit with that and work through it, right? And often we'll undercharge, right? So guilt has a lot to do with undercharging also has a lot to do with guilt, because we don't want to have too much. So that's when we feel guilt. And most people will actually say this, that they feel guilty for their pricing. They don't feel, especially entrepreneurs, they don't feel congruent when they say, this is my price, this is how much I charge. There's a sense of, oh my God, I shouldn't have said that, right? So one thing that I say to people when we're dealing with guilt is we want to do a lot of inner child healing, right? Because we want to understand the root cause of that guilt. And that's usually in lesson 6 to lesson 9 of my course. I think I have about 9 guided meditations for inner child healing, because there's different things that we're healing around the inner child and the inner teen. Okay, so, and then I have a spirit of money meditations, which in my money magic course, it's like 3 different meditations around connecting with the spirit of money, because also you want to understand the money archetype that you've created. And I call it spirit of money because the archetype that we have isn't always human. It can be anything. For all I know, the money archetype that we've created has to do with, like, I don't know, a mermaid, because a mermaid represents something to your subconscious mind. So then we want to unpack that and basically heal that image. I don't want to say change it, because change implies force. And I don't believe that we change the subconscious through force. We gently heal it, right? So the third emotion is shame. And I think this image definitely depicts shame very well, because shame is an emotion that makes us want to hide. Think about when we say to someone, you should be ashamed. It's almost like you should not even want to show your face in public. You should want to hide. So most people actually feel deep shame around their debt, right? Because it's like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? So it makes us want to hide. So shame is also about what will others say. Actually, in the Stone Age, back way back centuries ago, right? Part of why we felt shame was as for social reasons, because if we felt shame about something, we were unlikely to do it again, and we were unlikely to and often if we did something that went against the values of the tribe, then we'd feel shame, because often the values of the tribe kept us alive and kept us together. So for like most of us that are here on this planet, is because our ancestors knew how to follow tribal rules. So they didn't get killed, they didn't get kicked out of the tribe and get eaten by animals. So yeah, we are very well versed with shame, right? And because shame makes us want to hide, it's not like you're going to wake up and be like, oh, yay, I feel so much shame about my debt and not having savings. So I'm going to go out and just do things, right? I'm going to go out and talk to my bank and talk to financial advisors and do stuff. No, often we procrastinate because that's the nature of the emotion. That's what shame makes us do, right? So again, with shame, we want to heal the inner child and really just learn how to sit with it, understand the root cause of the shame. So that's the lesson 1 meditations is about understanding the root cause of our shame, understanding the thoughts that are causing the shame, because behind every emotion, there's an actual thought that makes us feel a particular way, right? And then blame. Blame is an emotion that comes from a sense of powerlessness, right? We feel like we are in victim mode. So whenever we feel like we want to blame someone, it's because we feel that we've been victimized. So it's always never our fault, it's someone else's fault. And that completely robs us of our own power, right? And sometimes it really is deserved, that there are certain things where we can say, where we can literally trace back that the reason why I'm like this is because my parents and my grandparents grew up under a system of oppression since the 1600s, and that led to ABCD. Or maybe my mom told me I wasn't good enough, or I was a good for nothing, and that means that as a child I didn't have the deductive logic to figure out that that wasn't true, and I made it part of my story and my self-reflection and the way that I perceive myself. All those things are true. However, it's also up to us to heal ourselves. So most times blame is a very difficult emotion to deal with because it's so often people that are victims are truly victims, but then we also embrace the victim archetype and the shadow aspects of the victim. And that completely disempowers us because then we can't take responsibility. And when we can't take responsibility of our finances, how do we take action to change whatever needs changing, right? How do we then start paying off debt when every time we look at the debt, we go into blame mode? Oh my God. So my story was, oh my God, I would so not be struggling this way if only my family had done A, B, C, D for me. Then I would be in a different situation altogether. But then it never ever solved anything because I was constantly not taking responsibility. And not taking responsibility actually led me into more debt because it was never my fault, right? So every time I got more and more in debt, it was always someone else's fault because of what had happened in my past. And incidentally, because we're in blame mode, we tend to give too much. And that makes no sense often, right? But often victims, people that are in victim mode, right? So when you're feeling like you're the victim, you're often looking to be saved. And ironically, you go out of the way to save others because you're feeling like you want to be saved. So most victims haven't learned that they give so much and they try to save others from bad situations so often and give money and give away so much money to help others from feeling bad or whatever, because they themselves are trying to save themselves, but they haven't yet figured out how to save themselves. So they go out of their way to save others. And often what I find is that most people will give when they should be giving to themselves, they'll give more to others than they do to themselves. So they'll literally create debt to pay for others and to help others. And sometimes because you're in victim mode and you haven't yet seen your own power and you're struggling with self-love, you'll even give too much to lovers. What I often see happen is people will create debt to give to lovers because they still haven't dealt with their own wounds and not understanding that you don't have to do anything to get love. You just simply have to be, right? And yeah, it's also about loving yourself, but also just knowing that you're enough as you are in this moment. So how do we heal blame mode? It's through inner child, the emotion of blame. A lot of it is about inner child healing because we learned how to be victims and how to blame at a very young age. And there's often a lot of trauma that is attached to the emotion of blame. And then we heal our money shadow as well. So my primary money shadow is actually the victim, right? So I happen to know a lot about the victim because I've studied it, I've sat with it. It's really my primary money shadow. So guilt and blame were my two most difficult emotions that kept me in debt because I just didn't know how to take responsibility. And I literally had to learn to take responsibility. And that meant like owning my own financial mistakes, and giving myself a break after I'd owned them. So the next emotion is overwhelm. Okay, so overwhelm is just feeling like it's too much. And that's really easy to feel if you just have too much debt. So for me, it was feeling like my debt was too much because I didn't just have one loan of $60,000. I had like, I don't know, 12 different loans, owed family, friends, had 4 different credit cards, all that. So often we just don't know where to start. So overwhelm has two impacts, has two effects. We either want to run from our finances when we feel financially overwhelmed, which is the same as avoidance. So we go into avoidance mode, which we discussed in the first emotion, anxiety, or we procrastinate, which we've also spoken about procrastination, right? So the first thing with overwhelm is about, you want to sit and really sit with the emotion of overwhelm so that you retrain the amygdala not to run or procrastinate when you feel overwhelmed. But you also want to get very practical with overwhelm. So in lesson 3 of the Money Magic course, I teach about goal setting, but different ways of how. So actually this starts from lesson 2, which is you set a financial vision, and then how do you break down a vision and really make it into a goal? Because it's lovely to have a visualization and visualize things and put it out there, but we also need to be practical at some point and go from visualization to writing down the vision to setting those intentions to really doing goal setting to having monthly, annual goals to breaking down the annual goals to an annual action steps, and then taking the annual action steps into something as basic as weekly, day-to-day steps. That's really what makes us feel less overwhelmed, especially where finances are concerned. And then the next step is about adopting new financial behaviors, which is how do you take really like massive amounts of debt, and then how do you start paying those off little by little, right? How do you start from the slowest to from the smallest amount to the biggest amount? So we really want to be practical when we're dealing with overwhelm. Then the next, the 6th emotion is frustration. So frustration is really linked to anger as well, right? So when we feel frustrated, it's because we've given it our all, or we think we've given it our all. So then we so close to giving up, right? So frustration actually makes us want to give up because we just feel like, oh, I've done everything. Oh. There's actually a theory, behavioral psychology called frustration aggression principle, which is that every time we feel frustrated, we instantly get angry. So often people that are most likely to feel frustrated are also people that will have anger management problems. So think of people that like really get angry really fast and how you just go F it, right? That's a very effect of frustration. It's similar to anger. It's just like we just go F it, I'm done, I don't care. Right? So then we tend to self-sabotage because we get angry and we get into that attitude of, I don't care, this is it. Then we get into self-sabotage mode, and you'll often feel like frustration will happen in such a way, like, let's say you've been paying off debt, and then a few months down the line, you feel like, oh my gosh, I live to pay off debt, which used to happen to me all the time. And then halfway through, I'd be like, and nothing is moving, nothing is shifting. F this, and I'll just use my credit cards all over again, right? Because I was just feeling like I want this to shift instantly. So frustration also makes us feel super impatient, which can lead to us increasing debt, right? And obviously decreasing savings and investments by default. But on the flip side, there's actually studies that have shown in behavioral finance that frustration also leads us to miserly behavior and self-deprivation. Because we're frustrated, we want to reach our financial goals faster. So we actually deprive ourselves of the good things, which is actually a surefire way to really self-sabotage, because you will often feel frustrated because of self-deprivation. So most people tend to say they force their lives to fit a budget. And I often say to people, what you want to do is you want to create a life that you want a budget. You want to create your budget and have it fit around your life, right? You don't want to take your life and fit it into a budget. You want a budget that fits your life. And that means that you want to easily budget. You want to start aligning your financial spending with your values. You don't want to be like, oh, I want to spend X amount on groceries, when you know that you're the kind of person that loves organic food and loves farmers markets and all that, because you're going to self-sabotage, and it will feel like self-deprivation, which will make you frustrated and angry at money and at your entire budget. So you want to find a way to make budgeting easy, right? So a lot of that is about rethinking the way your entire relationship with money, which is where the spirit of money work comes in, right? And the final emotion is impatience. So this should come as no surprise, but actually studies have shown that impatient people are most likely to have the highest revolving debt, the highest credit card debt. I mean, that's a no-brainer, because if you're impatient, you're more likely to want to pay for everything that you want now. It's harder to make yourself stop and breathe and wait until the next day to work through to look and shop and find different sales, or find alternatives or cheaper alternatives. If you're impatient, you struggle with instant gratification. So you need things to happen now. So you'll do whatever it takes to make that happen. So no wonder impatient people have higher credit card debt, right? And so it's not good debt that impatient people have. And actually, studies also show that impatient people are less likely to negotiate, right? So you have higher debt because you're impatient, but you also take the first salary offer. So these are studies that they've been doing. There's a way that they've been testing from kids from a young age with the marshmallow test. You guys are going to have to Google that. I'm not going to go in depth on it, but they do marshmallow tests and they follow the kids for throughout their adult lives, through high school, adulthood, everything. And they see that, oh, the kids that are impatient are the ones that are least likely to negotiate. They're the ones that will take the first salary offer that's offered, right? Because they're just so impatient. They're least likely to negotiate for car deals, for houses, anything. They'll just take whatever they're given. So, and because they don't negotiate, they also overpay for things. And because you're impatient, think about it. If you walk into a store, you see a shoe you want, and you go, oh my God, I must have this shoe. I love it. And your first instinct is to pay for it because you need instant gratification. Then you're obviously not shopping around for different shoe brands or for the same shoe at different stores. So you're most likely to overpay. Okay, so the one thing that I tell people to do when it comes to impatience is to just sit with impatience, learn to just be with the feeling of impatience. So that comes under lesson 1, meditations. And I also talk about higher self meditations, which is really connecting with the higher self version of you. Okay. Whew. How are you guys feeling? And is any of this making sense? Let me know in the chat session before I go into the last part of this. Okay, so where am I? Okay, so Aziza, I hear noise in the background.
I'm sorry. My son unmuted the mic. So sorry.
Okay, no problems. Okay. Okay, if there's no questions, let me go back to screen sharing. So we're almost done. Okay, so now that I've told you about the 7 emotions that keep us in debt and stop us from saving, let's talk about the concept of healing ourselves to financial freedom. So most times we seem to think that we need to work harder to make more money, right? And we need to basically spend less and deprive ourselves of all the good and awesome things in this world so that we get out of debt. But what if it's really about healing ourselves of all that trauma that's stopping us from manifesting and attracting money into our lives in the first place, and is stopping us from using money wisely, right? Because really it's not about the money, it's about us. Money is really just energy, right? So it's about us, and it's about healing whatever it is within us that's stopping us from attracting more money and making more money, or just changing our financial behavior and feeling less anxious or feeling less impatient or less overwhelmed, and just being calm around money. Our emotions come from somewhere. We don't just feel anxiety around money. We feel anxiety around money because we have a story that's creating the anxiety, that's making us feel anxious. And we have ancestral beliefs that are making us feel this way. So it's about healing that so that we can heal our finances. So often it's that we fear who we will be when we have money, right? So it's about healing that as well. And often it's also about we fear what others will say and the judgment that will come when we finally financially free and we have money. It's that whole like, ooh, you've changed. You're no longer the same person, or that we'll lose friends. So I often say to people, it's okay. You will probably lose friends on the journey, right? Because what happens is that your vibration will start to change, and maybe other people are dealing with different things in their lives, and so now you have different issues in your life, and people may not feel like you are resonating with the same issues. But sometimes you won't lose certain friends, right? Because there'll be friends that go, oh, okay, you're taking a different path. I'm here for this, but I'm happy with my journey. And you'll be shocked by the friends that stay. At least I was, and my students often are, and the friends that leave. And that's okay too, because life is about ebb and flow. As some people leave, other people come in, right? And we also need to understand the personalities that we've created around money, which I explained in the beginning, right? So often the emotions in our body and the sensations that we go through when we manage in our body, and the changes in breath that we deal with when we're dealing with money, are actually just symptoms that are underlying, and the root cause are the thoughts, the beliefs, the memories, vows, ancestral heritage, and spiritual beliefs that we have around money and around ourselves and how we perceive ourselves, right? And all these things lead to us feeling the things that we feel emotionally, and even how our bodies react whenever we manage money or handle money, right? And often when we handle money, our breath will change. So that's a tool that I usually teach in the 5-day challenge with people, is that there's often a change in breath whenever you manage money or you look at your bank statement. So I have exercises where I teach people to use the body to understand what's going on at a deeper level emotionally, and eventually here, emotionally, and eventually at a thought level, right? And all these things then affect the way that we make money, save money, invest money, pay back our debt or not pay back our debt, and also how we spend money, right? So often what we think we need to do is we need to solve this equation, right? We need to solve the end part. This is a symptom, just like the emotions are a symptom. Our income, our savings, our investments, all those things are symptoms of really the deeper issue, which is the root cause. So that's the thoughts, the beliefs, the memories, all that. So I always say to people, it's about healing the thoughts and the beliefs in order to change the end result, which is income, savings, and investments. And I swear to you guys, this is what I teach. I teach how to do that. And a third of the work that I teach is around the practical aspects of managing income and everything. But every time when people have changed their thoughts, their beliefs, their ancestral stuff, healed their inner child, all that, the income, the savings, the debt, all those things start to change, and it starts to become easier to follow through on the debt repayment plan, on the strategy that you have around earning a higher income, on taking the courses that you need to make more money. Then suddenly those things become so much easier, right? And yet we're often taught at school that it's about working on the income, making sure that we do things, we save more, we do all the practical steps, we take all the practical steps, whereas really it's the deeper root causes that are going on at the subconscious level that we want to heal, right? So again, feel free to share your insights in the chat. Otherwise, let's do a quick recap. Today, you learned all about the link between emotions and financial behavior. You also looked at the 7 emotions that stop us from saving and investing. So we looked at those. And we also talked about the importance of healing. So healing of healing versus just having a strategic plan for the income and the savings and all that, because as important as that is, it's often influenced by deeper beliefs, right? So once we heal ourselves, we can also heal our finances. So I'm assuming that you're here today for the main reasons that people usually come to my masterclasses, which is to learn how to start trusting money and trusting yourself with money, right? To stop sabotaging yourself financially. And because you probably want to be debt free and you want to change your relationship with money, right? So my thing is to always say to people, it's your time to just get out of your way and thrive. The only thing that ever stands between us and our dreams and living the lives that we want really is ourselves. We are all capable of changing our financial situation and changing our lives. And it starts with us. It starts with healing all our stories, our histories, all that. And that changes so much, right? So I want to invite you guys to join the free 5-day Fall in Love with Your Bank Account challenge. So after this masterclass, you can go a little deeper. As I said earlier, the challenge has 695 or 97 people. I don't know. It's probably more people now. People keep joining the challenge throughout. And we started today. So day one of the challenge was today, and we will end on Thursday, October 25th. So definitely join us. So you can join the challenge here at wealthy-money.com/challenge. So again, you can just go to wealthy-money.com/challenge. Just add your details and you'll be good to go. So yeah, that's the 5-day Fall in Love with Your Bank Account challenge. So do you have any questions at all? Let me know. And that's it for today's class. I'm going to go back online. So, okay, so that's it. Aziza, do you have anything that you want to add? Do you have any questions?
Thank you so much, Vangel, for being a part of the Natural Woman Power Hour and sharing all of this wonderful information. I have learned so much from this workshop. I hope everyone has. This workshop has been recorded. I know a lot of people who signed up for the workshop were not able to tune in live, but this has been recorded. It will be shared. And we just thank you so much for sharing this information. I hope you guys take in the information, sign up for the 5-day masterclass challenge. I know it's exciting. I may sign up for that. But that's all I have. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Okay, thank you so much. And I'm going to call it a night. I'm in Thailand, so it's 9 p.m. I'm going to go hunting for dinner. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Aziza. And guys, please feel free to sign up for the challenge. We have people from all over the world. I'm super excited. My dream is to grow it. By the next time I do the challenge, I want 2,000 people to participate. So that will be in 2019, probably in February. That's my aim. I run it twice a year at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. So next year, I'm hoping for 2,000 people to join. So for February, and then 5,000 by end of 2019.
Awesome. I have no doubt that you will reach that goal. Thank you so much. Find some dinner. Enjoy your evening. It's morning time here, so I'm about to get my day started. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, Aziza. Bye.